January 6, 1943. At 226 Fairview Lane, a fire consumes a mansion. The flames tower as the brave 37th Division volunteer firefighters combat the blaze. The smoldering rubble used to be the mansion of Frederick J. Chesterfield. While few remember his name, some experts believe that between 1920 and 1940, about 1 in every 20 Americans had met him. In 1895, on March 23rd, a baby boy was born at St. Jerome Memorial Hospital. Elaine and James' third child was born at 5:42 p.m., and they named him Frederick Jacob Chesterfield. Other than a highly acute sense of hearing, Frederick was a perfectly healthy, normal baby. Frederick was raised in a loving home that was at the center of high society. As Freddie grew, he and his brother enjoyed riding bicycles, keeping the family accounts, and wearing kilts. No one, including Freddie, suspected he would grow to be one of the great criminal minds of the early 20th century. In the 10th year of his life, plucky young Frederick left home to make a name for himself. Having no vocational skills whatsoever, Frederick turned to a life of crime to survive. He first roamed the country as a traveling minstrel. He lived a pleasant life until the peasants in the kingdom, tired of living in muck, decided to move to the city and work as investment bankers. Needless to say, this left the entire feudal system in collapse, and Freddie was forced to look for a new identity. As Freddie wandered, he unknowingly stumbled into Mrs. Sanders' backyard. Thinking quickly and seizing the opportunity of the moment, he assumed the identity of Mrs. Sanders' laundry. He successfully maintained this ruse for 3 months, narrowly escaping serious injury after the absent-minded Mrs. Sanders mistakenly hung the laundry on a high-voltage power line. He soon realized there was absolutely no profit whatsoever to be made by hanging around waiting to go through the ringer. Ultimately, Freddie went the way of Mr. Sanders' prize-winning Argyle sock and vanished. One month later, convincing the crew of the SS Hesitation that he was a full-grown man of diminutive proportions, Frederick became the vessel's captain. He led the crew on a direct route to the eastern shore of Africa. But, lacking any sense of geography, Frederick had confused Africa with Antarctica and was entirely unprepared for the climate. Dispirited by this miscalculation, Frederick decided to head directly home to America, quickly stopping by South Africa to visit Cousin Ted, dropping by in Indonesia for some snacks on the trip home, then heading straight for America. It was only once he took the crew out to sea again that the authorities caught up with him in the South Pacific and charged him with impersonating a naval officer, ignoring the international dateline, and copyright infringement. While traveling back to the United States, Frederick took on the identity of the ship's cook and escaped the long arm of the law. Once again, he found himself with no means of income. It was then that Frederick thought of a scheme that would define the rest of his life. He would become a cat burglar. For the next few weeks he prepared his plan. He drew out a floor plan of the house and bought the necessary clothes and tools for the job. On May 15, 1922, Frederick Chesterfield performed his first job as a cat burglar. After stealing the goods, he laid low for a week, then went out onto the street to try and sell his booty. He was surprised at how easy it was to sell cats. He continued his feline capers until October 7th, that same year, when he was caught and arrested. He was charged with breaking and entering, unauthorized feline sales, and using a fake mustache. It was Freddie's first arrest, but definitely not his last. Over the next few years, he was arrested numerous times under numerous aliases. Despite the setbacks the law occasionally posed, Frederick created a cat burglary empire, a veritable crime syndicate. In 1938, Frederick Chesterfield's cat burglary was prospering, and he used his wealth to fund a childhood dream. Under the pseudonym Sid Fleischman, Frederick wrote, directed, and produced his own musical entitled Darling, Someone Has Pilfered Our Feline. Much to his disappointment, the reviews were as bad as the title. To quote the New York Chronicle, "Fleischman's Darling is anything but. The entire production has all the charm of a grade school recital in which the shy child faints, all students are sick and out of key, their coughs spread to the audience, the little boy on the right cannot stop picking his nose, the curtain catches fire, and poisonous snakes are let loose during the performance. I am left to wonder if the producers simply took a bunch of monkeys, put them in a room with typewriters, and used whatever they produced." Stephen Freeland. Ironically, 1 week later, A Id Va Ig Taikba, a play where the producers took a bunch of monkeys and put them in a room with typewriters and used whatever the monkeys produced, opened at the Regal Theatre. The play was a box office smash, and Freeland would later unsuccessfully sue the producers for plagiarizing his idea. After the failure of his musical, Frederick seemed to vanish. Cats continued to be stolen, but Frederick was never spotted. It was eventually discovered that prior to the fire, Frederick had been planning the largest cat caper to date. While all the details are not known, it was believed this plan involved 3 Zeppelins, half a ton of dynamite, penguins, a mine, and a trebuchet. This plan was never carried into action due to the 43 fire. During the weeks leading up to the fire, Frederick's associates noticed that he seemed distracted. The fires started in the middle of the night and quickly engulfed the entire mansion. Only a few scraps of documents and plans were found, and it was discovered that all the cats had been set free the night before. The police arrived, hoping to finally catch the infamous thief, but Frederick was nowhere to be found, dead or alive. After an extensive search, Frederick Chesterfield was registered as a missing person, and his police record was filed away. Only Frederick himself will ever know what became of Frederick J. Chesterfield.